Hi, Mystery resurfaced here. Today I am going to explain an action drama comedy film called Big Brother. How's the story goes on, watch ahead. Henry gets back to Hong Kong in the wake of serving in the US military for quite a long time, hoping to begin a profession as a teacher. He goes to his previous school Tok Chi Secondary. The principal notes that he doesn't have experience in teaching. However, in the wake of being shown a suggestion letter from a higher authority, he is given the job. Before Henry leaves, the principal illuminates him that the class he is assigned to teach is one of the most horrendously awful in the school. The morning of his first day at school, Henry strolls into the class to see that it is an outright tumult. A few students are sleeping, others are singing. Some are playing computer games, while a lot of them are cooking ramen on a compact stove. Even after the teacher strolls in, they totally disregard him and proceed with what they are doing. Henry attempts to get their attention, however they pretend to not hear him. He gives up on attempting to redirect their attention and strolls around the classroom, remarking on the things they are as of now doing. The students who are cooking are approached to eat less ramen, in light of the fact that it contains a lot of sodium. Henry then moves toward a student named Zulfa playing ukulele and assists him with it. Additionally, he cautions a gamer child against the radiation he could get from gazing at the screen all day out. When the students at last beginning paying attention to him, he presents himself and writes his name and telephone number on the board. The students laughed because his handwriting is terrible. Then somebody from the students calls him and requests that he leave the class. However, Henry dismisses it. The children overlook him once more and go on with the stuffs they were doing before his appearance. Having enough of it, Henry utilizes an elastic band and piece of chalk to set off the fire sprinkler in the room. The students immediately spread out to hold themselves back from getting wet. He at last stands out and authoritatively invites them, saying, "Welcome to my class." After class, a group of 5 least-ranking students gathers in the game's supply space to smoke. The head of the group, Jack, has a keen interest in a grade student from another class. The others observe him gazing at her image and teases him. The group has a contention with the rich and ruined kids from the school's basketball team. They go into the supply room and mock Jack as expected because he is poor. Later, the basketball team is rehearsing. While Jack and the group watched them from distant, Jack drops a bottle on the court, which makes the team leader fall. The group laughs, yet he has given confinement by the school's English teacher, Miss Lee Yong, to keep away from detainment. They pull a trick on her and take off when she was busy cleaning her work area. Somewhere else, the school's principal is upset on the grounds that the training board is wanting to deduct 20% of their yearly financing. Individuals from the board come to take a visit through the school to investigate where the assets are being utilized. Simultaneously, Henry enters the classroom where the students have set up a can of water to trick him. Yet his reflexes work quicker than the falling can, and he can drive it away. The students who had been waiting to make fun of him are left stunned. Henry requests Jack's bundle of cigarettes, realizing that he smokes. Jack basically gives him the pack, inquisitive regarding what he is going to do. Then Henry asks Zulfa to name the 3 ingredients that are in the cigarette. When he addresses the inquiry accurately, he is permitted to skip class for the afternoon. Everybody begins to beat on their desk, requesting that they ought to get to skip class also. When they stop, he gives every one of them a cigarette and requests that they investigate it. Henry knows if he just notices the impact it has on their health, they won't approach it in a serious way. So instead, he gets some information about the results of smoking cigarettes and makes sense of how tar structures in their lungs. Interestingly, they focus on the teacher, and they're really keen on learning. After the bell rings, he requests that they return the cigarettes. And the students hesitantly agree. That day in the cafeteria, the captain of the basketball team makes one of Jack's friend Bruce stumble on his leg. This brings about a contention between the groups, which soon transforms into a fight. They toss food and tables at one another, destroying the spot. Later, Henry comes to know that 5 students from his class have been briefly suspended for beginning the fight, Henry sees Jack fighting his rival in the passage and stops them. On being approached to quiet down, Jack accuses the school of being unfair because rich kids get no discipline. That day after school, Henry goes through the documents of each of the 5 students to figure out additional about them. The first student is named Zulfa, the son of a Pakistani worker who is generally victimized on account of his race. He is in many cases blamed for stealing by the cops in his neighborhood. Zulfa's only wish in his life is to turn into an artist. The second student is a girl named Danon. She was a mistake to her dad since the time she was born. Since he needed a boy, her whole life, Danon has been attempting to acquire her dad's regard. She even trimmed her hair to a more limited length and played with cars to profess to be a boy. However, her dad doesn't care about her while he treats her younger brother like a sovereign. Then, there are siblings named Bruce and Chris. Their mom took off with a man when they were just children, which transformed their dad into a heavy drinker. The siblings just had each other to depend on while growing up. Bruce became obsessed with computer games to get away from the real world, while Chris really buckled down in a supermarket to bring in cash for the family. At last, Henry can't find any data about Jack's family background. In the accompanying scene, we see Jack working at a cafe as a server. A MMA superior Zhang Yang shows up at the cafe with his colleagues. When Zhang Yang isn't looking, Jack steals his extravagant lighter, yet he gets caught. Zhang Yang's men beat him up. As he looks at Jack's ID, after observing that he is a student, he gives a few cash and offers him a task as their food delivery man. Elsewhere, Henry visits Zulfa's home and finds him taking off from his dad and his partners in the wake of taking a ticket. He helps him at first, but after figuring out why he is being pursued, he agrees with the dad's stance. Then he and Zulfa come to hang out at a bridge to inspire Zulfa into doing anything he desires. Henry sings with a band acting in the roads, seconds after Zulfa goes along with him and sings before the people, interestingly since being harassed at school quite a while back. In meantime, Bruce and Chris' dad gets back home late like generally, and orders them to present to him a beer from the store. Whenever the siblings refused, he shouts at them to escape his home. The following day, Henry meets with their dad and persuades him to go to rehab for his son's well-being. Meanwhile, Denon's father brings her a bag of cosmetics item and requests her to behave like a girl for once. Denon is furious at him for continuously causing her to feel like she isn't good enough. She puts on the cosmetics on her younger brother and escapes the house with the car key. She is going to drive away in her dad's car, yet he's stopped by Henry at the right second. He tells her that driving without a permit is illegal, and recommends another option. Following that, they go to a go-kart race track. Henry also welcomes her dad and makes them race. The dad and girl go for the kill quickly and without hesitation to one another during the race and in the end up outside the track. Unexpectedly, Denon's go-kart is hit by a car. However, she figures out how to evade it. Unaware about this, her dad cries, grieving his little girl's passing. Denon understands that he actually doesn't, in fact, love her and embraces him. The following day at school, Bruce and Chris, alongside a group, are sent off a recovery place to talk with a recovering alcoholic. They are amazed to see that the person they need to meet with is their dad. The student asked him how he began to drink. The man answers that he adored his wife sincerely. However, she left him at the absolute bottom of his life. Subsequently, he began to drink and failed to remember that he had 2 children to deal with. The man doesn't uncover that Bruce and Chris are his children. However, apologizes to them before it's finished. The siblings are left crying. Elsewhere, Jack has begun to work for the MMA superior Zhang Yang. He offers Jack huge load of cash to drug a fighter's drink in the following game. Jack is hesitant, yet is forced into accepting the proposal upon the arrival of the fight. Zhang Yang supports a contender, but bets cash on his loss. Jack places drugs in the contender's drink, however he gets caught at the same time before he can fault Zhang Yang. He is pounded and locked inside a storage some time later. Henry shows up there and inquires as to whether they have seen his student. The man requested that he get back. In any case, Jack from inside the storage shouts for help. On figuring out he is being caught, and Henry assaults them and overpowers them effectively when the contenders step in. It gets a bit serious, yet Henry avoids their assaults productively before the finish of any takes out their best warrior who should contend shortly. In the accompanying scene, they are at a medical clinic where Henry gets treated for his injuries. Jack attempts to uncover reality with regards to Zhang Yang, yet is made to quiet down. The news comes to the TV and Henry begins being known as the one who beat up an expert contender to save his student. His popularity in school develops, and the student begin to respect him. They even get up to invite him to the class, as opposed to how they were before. A flashback shows us that Henry used to be a jokester when he was in school. He even tossed water inflatables at an student, who was playing piano for the parents in an occasion. Later he fought similar student and broke his hand. He was suspended for the fight, after which he needed to travel to the States. Beginning that day, the students focus when Henry teaches in class. What's more really focus in for the upcoming school entrance test. Everybody is doing incredible with the exception of Bruce, who has become dependent on pills. It appears that while Charlie went to video games to keep away from his family's concern, Bruce began taking drugs since he is unfocused. He does very badly in the mock entry test. Henry vows to help him. However, Bruce develops more discouraged with time. In the long run, he leaps off from balcony of his home. He is hurried to the emergency clinic and goes into a state of coma. The media turns the news and faults it on the school and Henry for what Bruce did. The authorities from the education board interview Henry, and choose to renounce his showing permit, when he packs his things and leaves the school. The students pursue him, requesting that he stay. They're heartbroken by his absence, yet they realize that they ought to ace their upcoming test to make him proud. From that day on, they concentrated on 2 times as difficult to demonstrate to the board up that Henry is a good teacher. Upon the arrival of the test, Jack alongside his classmates in general get a text from Henry requesting that they meet in the school, an hour prior to the test. When the students assemble, they figure out that it was Zhang Yang's trick to keep them restricted in the school, so they won't come to the assessment corridor on schedule. He is doing this to teach Henry a lesson, while later, Henry shows up at school and learns about Zhang Yang's plan. He allows the students to free and fights all of Zhang Yang's people, to prevent them from hurting the kids. They escape and immediately advance toward the assessment corridor. While Henry fights Zhang Yang, while they are fighting one-on-one, Zhang Yang uncovers that he was the person who Henry had tossed water inflatables at when he was nearly nothing. It would appear since the time Henry broke his arm, he couldn't contend in a major music contest since the time the occurrence. He hasn't touched a piano and faults Henry for destroying his fantasy. Henry attempts to dissuade him, yet he assaults once more. They struggle to snag a blade. Finally, Henry gets in a pursuit to kill. But it doesn't make it happen. He requests forgiveness for what he did when he was pretty much nothing and leaves. The students arrived at the assessment corridor on time and complete the test. Sliced to half a month after the fact, they all pass the test with flying colors. Zhang Yang begins to play the piano once more, yet has a great deal to rehearse before he gets as great as he used to be. Bruce recovers rapidly and vows to go to next year's entry test. The principal is more than happy on the grounds that the board chooses to give them a 20% reward reserve because their students did very well in the entry test. Henry gets back to teaching and does the fire sprinkler stunt on one more group of students. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.